In the past, the only way to become a pharmacist was to study a 4-year undergraduate degree. But now Newcastle University is offering a new 2-year postgraduate degree, a Master of Pharmacy for people who have a science-based undergraduate degree.
We've had a few students who are nurses with degree qualifications. We've had many science students and biomedical science students. Now, some of these may have originally aimed at graduate medicine, but are interested now in graduate pharmacy as their profession.
The course has been established in response to a lack of pharmacists, especially in regional areas.
At the moment, there are over 250 places in New South Wales hospital system alone for pharmacists, empty.
It's hoped the degree will not only produce more pharmacists, but also professionals with a broad range of backgrounds.
The profession is changing, so understanding of genomics, genetic counselling for instance, is an area where quite a different experience to the standard chemistry background that we associate with pharmacists would come from.
30 students will start the course next year, with the yearly intake extended to 50 after that. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
Hopes of a grand final berth may have been in everyone's mind, but all barriers were broken down for a brief moment this morning as rivals united for a civic reception. After months of competition, 900 teams have been whittled down to just 4 boys and 4 girls sides, and today's semi-final clash saw an origin battle between Kurri Kurri and Brisbane's Cavendish High. The Northerners making their presence felt early in the game, commanding control and often edging dangerously close to goal. Kurri gave it everything but were flat out getting past the Queenslanders. Cavendish again made headway in search of points as they kept the home side on its toes. The visitors maintained the momentum in the second half, this shot all but in. Kurri succumbing to the pressure from a shot that looked in slow motion, but Lorena Maggio still netted the game breaker. Kirsty Waters made sure of it, slotting home a second after a brilliant pass from Monique Coford. Cavendish through to the finals to be played tomorrow night. Colleen West, NBN News.
It's an alliance between the newest players in the region's coal industry. Centennial Coal, buyer of the state-owned power coal mines, giving Interrail a second contract in the Hunter as the Queensland company challenges industry giant Pacific National. The 6-year deal will see 1.3 million tonnes moved annually and ensure the Fassifern mine's future.
Anything that assists us in reducing our costs obviously benefits us as a company, but also benefits the mine and assuring it's got a continued life.
The appointment of a dedicated carrier for the Vales Point consignment has seen Centennial invest in new rail infrastructure so the train travels a more direct route to the power station.
We've spent about $2 million putting in a new southern loop and turnout so that we can run the trains direct down the south to the power station rather than at the moment having to go up north, turning them around and run all the way back down again. So again, that's an efficiency that we're picking up.
Newsstand workers marked the start of the service by naming the lead locomotive of their train in honour of long-serving former mine manager Jim Simpson, who died last year. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Around 20,000 vehicles cross the Hunter River each day at Maitland and nearby Morpeth, with often lengthy delays at peak times.
Around 14,000 at Belmore Bridge, 6,000 at the Morpeth Bridge itself. So clearly there's a need to have a third crossing.
The state government is promising to build a third crossing this decade and is asking for public input on possible locations for a new bridge. The likely site will service the growing northern parts of Maitland.
Between Morpeth and East Maitland and services basically the Lawn Bulwarra area. That's where the desired traffic survey line goes, but that's not fixed in cement.
Some aren't fussed where the new bridge goes.
Anything of any of these old bridges down here, I want to pull them down. I don't worry about too much about the heritage thing. Just put a decent crossing across so you can get people backwards and forwards.
5 options are on display at Maitland RTA, the Council, City Library and Morpeth Post Office. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
An Education Week Open Day Assembly at Newcastle's Merriweather Public School was the setting for today's unique presentation. The future firmly in the spotlight when Year 4 pupil Nicole Sims was presented with her Centenary Medal. Thousands of people have already been honoured for their contribution to Australia in the first 100 years since the federation of our nation. 9-year-old Nicole recognised as a representative of the youth for the future of Australia. The South Australian government nominated her for the award, but the presentation had to be delayed because of her father's military transfer to Newcastle. It may be a big honour for one so young, but Nicole hopes her recognition will encourage her schoolmates to adopt strong values.
Honest and trustworthy, and that they should be proud of what they do and that they should try hard.
While her parents, Peter and Susie, are extremely proud and honoured, they won't be placing expectations on Nicole's shoulders.
In many ways, she really isn't any different from any other child out there whose parents would be more than proud of what they've achieved to date and for what their aspirations are for the future.
Gary Blair, NBN News.
Recovering from surgery on his right knee, Tamana Tahu has been keeping a low profile. But despite his noted absence from training in this weekend's squad, Knights coach Michael Hagan will give the test winger until the 11th hour to prove he's over that troublesome knee injury.
Well, we didn't think naming him was in his best interest. If he's not right, then it'll be the following week more than likely if we're good enough to be there. But it'd be very rough at this stage.
In the meantime, utility Craig Hall has been penciled into the starting lineup, set to play outside Matt Gidley. Josh Perry and Matt Parsons will go head-to-head with Roosters forwards Jason Kalis and Adrian Morley in what's expected to be a fiery battle up front.
I think everyone steps up come semi-finals time, and it'll be no different on come this weekend.
With his future at the Knights still in the air, Adam McDougall will no doubt be playing the game as if it was his last. In devastating form, the Roosters are odds-on favourite to end the Knights season. That tip is only fuelling Newcastle's fire.
A lot of the experts are writing us off, so really we're not feeling the pressure. We're just going out there to enjoy ourselves, and I know all the boys are looking forward to the big game opportunity and just the opportunity to go out there and play, semi-final football.
Adam McIlrick, NBN News.
The reigning World Supercross champion, it's the coveted US title that Chad Reed really wants to win, especially after just finishing second in the recent series, even after taking out the final 6 events. Originally scheduled to race for Australia and Europe, Reed will limit his off-season to just 2 rides, one in America and the other at Gosford, in the National Supercross Masters Grand Final.
Well, I would rather race. I'd come here any day rather than go to Europe.
In doing so, he turns his back on a small financial windfall, but his desire to prepare for next season's US Series is now the #1 priority. The New South Wales Rally Championship moves to the Wannigan Forest on the Central Coast this weekend. The Hunter team of Chris Giddens and Ken Holwell will start as favourites in the Group N or production car class, as they lead the field at the halfway mark of the championship. Just a week out from the NSL season opener, and a threadbare Newcastle United has its last trial match tomorrow against Parramatta at Glendale. With Steve Eagleton and Craig Deans still recovering from knee surgery, Scott Thomas and Jobe Wheelhouse will also be rested to overcome niggling injury. And the Hunter Pirates will play NBL champions, the Sydney Kings, tomorrow night as they continue their pre-season. If it wasn't intimidating enough to walk out with triple world champion Jeff Fennick, then Saki Obika soon spelled things out in the ring. Towering above the Indonesian champion Masharodi, Bika had him in height, reach and most importantly power. Called the Scorpion, Bika stung with almost every shot. Fighting on gamely, Masharodi's night was ended via Bika's body blows. Earlier in the night, Alan Luxford easily overcame Brian Fogarty in 3. Hopelessly outclassed, the Queenslander couldn't stop Luxford, who promptly challenged Johnny Cotterill for his state belt post-bout. He may have had second thoughts after watching the local fighter hammer into Brendan Batty. After Batty copped a standing 8 count, the referee had little choice but to call it off in the first, as Cotterill made it 8 wins from 9 starts. Still recovering from knee surgery, it was no surprise to see Steve Eagleton on the sideline, but new recruit Craig Deans was a shock sight, stripped and ready to play despite knee dramas of his own. An off-season buying spree for Parramatta has it listed as an early favourite this year. United striker Travis Dodd among the Powers purchases. Damien Brown got a quick g'day into his old teammates before he denied Parra's first effort on goal, stopping an Ante Milicic rocket. It was an impressive attack, Simon Colosimo finding room for Brazilian Fernando Rec, but United held firm. When they settled, Newcastle caused problems of their own. While Tom Willis showed signs he's comfortable as the team's #1 keeper. 0-0 at half-time, it remained that way for much of the second term, but the biggest drama was this, Robbie Middleby being helped from the field after damaging his ankle. With the season opener only 8 days away, it's unsure if the captain will be fit. Rubbing insult to injury, the Power were awarded a shot from the spot late in the match, with Milicic slotting home for a 1-0 win.
It's pretty down actually, like we're really disappointed. We let ourselves down real bad and we're pretty dirty on ourselves actually.
A mistake from the kick-off wasn't the best way to begin a grand final, and it only got worse for Aberdeen. Returning to town only hours before kick-off after the passing of his mother, Brett Hyland made it an emotional start. The Tigers got things going though soon after, Nathan and Ben Daniels combining as the latter crossed to level it up. Not the sight Scone wanted to see, captain coach Scott Pennell coming off injured, while other thoroughbreds were in danger too. What a huge year it's been for John Johnson, reaching the state residents team this season. He soon sent fullback Wayne Headley try-bound. Aiming at a moving target proved no problem for the Player of the Year, who promptly added the extras. He was soon converting again after a round-the-corner pass from Headley to Brett Adams had the home side over once more. The Tigers needed points and Tim Lonigan delivered in the corner. 18-10 at half-time, it was one-way traffic in the second. Headley started things as the floodgates started to open. Prop Adrian Gollage running like a back as he took Scone into the 30s. Headley got his third just on full time as Scone grabbed another premiership. The perfect farewell gift for Daryl Rando, who's called it a day.
The modern-day tall ship Young Endeavour has made many sailing visits to Newcastle with its Australian Navy crew and young sail training students. But this trip is all hard work, with the first major refit since the ship was handed over in 1988.
Refurbishment to the accommodation, some of the tanks and the spaces below will be repaired. And there will be overall painting, refurbishment of the mast and the rigging, so it's quite a large job.
Much of the ship's interior is being gutted during the refit. The project, worth around $1 million, will keep up to 30 people busy until early December.
Like all government work, it's competitively tendered, and we were successful over 3 other shipyards.
Forjax has also won more work on HMAS Canimbla that returned from the Persian Gulf in July. It'll arrive in port on Friday for a mechanical overhaul and a complete paint job. And in other tall ship news, the Queensland-based sail training ship South Passage is looking for crew for a voyage from Coffs Harbour to Port Stephens at the end of October. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
This is the last place Robbie Middleby wanted to be today, but even with his ankle injury responding well to treatment, he won't be leading the team out for the first time as captain on Sunday.
Definitely it was something I've always wanted, and not to do it, but I think it would be better the following week anyway, back at home.
The injury is similar to one he suffered to his other ankle 2 seasons ago, but thankfully it's not as bad. Either way, his loss only highlights the resources of a team already lean on fit players.
That's going to be the big thing this season, I think. Players try to keep fit, and it's not a good start for myself.
The Premier Hockey League season is over for the Tigers and the entrants after the first round of semi-finals was completed yesterday. With the Tigers season on the line, desperate defence kept things on track, but only for so long. Dean Ball tapping in for the first of his 2. It wasn't all smooth sailing as players came together. While North proved their defence is just as good as its attack. Theo Grashka also landed a double as North won by 5 and moved to within 1 game of the grand final.
It was obvious from the outset this was going to be a physical game, but both teams chanced their arm with risky passes. But talk the visitors were accurate from the outside proved to be true, while being in the right place at the right time also helped their cause. Their own imports proving to be very strong under the basket. Like jumping jacks, the Korean players seemed to be popping up everywhere in support, but more often than not their defence resulted in free shots for the home team. Peter Barnett found little room to move, so went over the top, while Chris Harriman decided to go around and under the big men to give the Pirates a 94-79 three-quarter lead. But after the short break, the 2 number 5s found themselves facing off after a spiteful encounter. The incident only spurring on Geordie Cullen. And with only minutes remaining, Kevin Brooks and Chris Brown combined for the most spectacular non-basket of the night, but Brown's persistence paid off. Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
For homeowners with a mortgage of $200,000, an interest rate rise of just 0.25% will cost an extra $31 each month.
It does worry me because at the end of the day it's going to mean that I'm going to be paying more money to the banks.
A survey involving 200 people from Newcastle, conducted by Wizard Home Loans, revealed 75% of people would need to make changes to their budget if rates rose by 1%.
But what's important to note is that it's luxury items that they're interested in cutting, things like pay TV, dining out, cigarettes and alcohol, and not the basics.
And it seems interest rates could rise as early as next month. Just yesterday, the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank announced the era of low interest rates is over. But the survey found most people are prepared for a rate hike, and first home buyers like Scott Peterson are now more informed about the pitfalls of home loans.
I've factored in the interest rates going up to about 10%. So if they go up to 10%, we'll still be right. We just have to cut back on some of our expenditure in other areas.
Lyndall Derrig, NBN News.
Yeah, I just put C also.
Where's his wallet? In that room?
Within the property area.
So he's lost another two from New South Wales Carlatelli, which they'll be out of boxing, I'd say there.
Just the screen. Hello, you know? Yep. Where did they take it from?
The two have carried their Newcastle competition rivalry to the Premier League, with last year's decider one that's long been talked about. South held a 3-1 lead with only minutes left before a late surge saw Norths take everyone into extra time. Once there, neither could find a winning goal, with the title eventually decided on penalty strokes. After finishing minor premiers and having won 2 of the 3 clashes this year, Phoenix North is hoping this is their year. Formerly the Hornsby to Swansea cycle race, it is now scheduled to finish in Warners Bay, with a crackfield set to take part in the 160-kilometre event tomorrow. Trent Wilson will defend his title in what will be his first domestic race since returning from Europe. Runner-up last year, Bart Hickson, has shelved retirement plans and will also ride. Uruguayan Hector Morales will be out to make it 2 wins in 8 days after taking out the Grafton to Inverell Classic last weekend, while national time trial champion Peter Molostig will be out to turn the tables after he placed second to the International in the same race.
Under the proposal, the private sector would put up the funds to redevelop the Mater Hospital, move mental health services from James Fletcher and improve cancer treatment facilities, with the state government paying the money back over 25 years. But local unions are strongly opposed to this public-private partnership and have implemented green bans to bring the issue to a head.
We've attempted to get the attention of both government and Hunter Health in regards to public-private partnerships. They haven't been listening. The only way we can bring their attention to focus is by saying, well, you won't be building any single building on any one of your sites until this issue is satisfactorily resolved.
But with construction work not expected to start until 2005, there's plenty of time left for an agreement to be reached.
People do genuinely have concerns because this is a new approach. We're very confident that this will work and work well. It's been tried overseas and there have been a lot of lessons learned about how to do this well.
Hunter Health is pushing ahead with the plan despite the industrial action, with expressions of interest expected to be called in the next few weeks. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
It's been a trying 24 hours for park management. The thieves, believed to be opposed to the new venture, stole marquees.
There will be people there that don't really understand, and there will be people that see it as being a freedom thing for them to just take something. We will try and change these people's ideas.
But some don't need to be convinced. Quite possibly the toughest critics are already sold. Named after the Aboriginal term for happy place, the Marook Fun Park on Nelson Bay Road is one of many tourism projects thrown a lifeline by the Warramai Land Council.
It came along probably at the right time, I think. You know, the Land Council had some dollars to do a project and this was it.
The park is currently staffed by 52 workers, with that figure to increase if further plans for additional renovations get the go-ahead.
Eventually we hope to employ 152. So if that means that we can employ those people, the place is going pretty well.
Marook will also double as a training and education facility for members of the Warramai Land Council.
A lot of Aboriginal people are unemployed and have been long-term unemployed. And the Land Council and its members saw that this project was a way of giving Aboriginal people employment.
Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
If the Moths could be counted in the crowd total, it would have been a packed house. Overcoming injury to lead his side out for the first time as captain, Robbie Middleby was in the action from the outset. felled in the box within 40 seconds to place teenager Job Wheelhouse on the spot. 1-0, and with their tails up, Middleby left defenders scrambling with only the last line of defence stopping Asala Massey doubling the lead. But the spirit soon lifted to control much of the half, with keeper Tom Willis passing early tests. Peter Sakanis then cleared United out of trouble, but Dylan McAllister finally found a way through as it was level once again. After the break, an accidental handball from Adam Griffiths set up McAllister for what looked to be a certain second. Much to their protest, the Spirit then got pinged for the same offence before Wheelhouse again steered home the penalty for a 2-0 win.
Soccer Australia's first to jump on the bandwagon because we never put players' registration numbers down in team sheets and fine clubs. They should have a look at the bloody state of referees.
North had all the early attacking, but it took 21 minutes before David Willett got them the lead. Goalkeeper Sean O'Brien maintained the buffer before Theo Grushka pounced to extend it. Less than a minute later and Stu Nelms had South on the board, but Willett made sure North went to the break up by 2. Goals continued to flow after the break. Dean Stanbury made it 4-1 2 minutes in. Daniel Edge got South a second, before David Willett grabbed his third for the day, and brother Andrew followed him in for a 6-2 lead. Down but not quite done, an Edge double gave South some hope as they clawed back to be within 2. But after 2 years of disappointment on the big day, it was North that finished on top, winning 7-4.
After a long, hard night putting out fires, all these firefighters want to do is get some sleep. Instead, they are backburning bushland south of Swansea in an attempt to stop the fire taking off again. Even a bulldozer was brought in to help with efforts. So far, around 120 hectares of scrub has been burnt out in mostly inaccessible terrain. The cause of the blaze is being treated as suspicious.
Just the area where the ignition took place, there's nothing there that could have ignited it, of natural causes, like wires and stuff like that. So our suspicions are that it is arson.
Persistently windy conditions fanned the blaze, which took hold late yesterday afternoon and moved extremely quickly through the dry bushland.
The area that we're operating in, or about to operate in now, is actually a wetland, but it's just so dry, it's bizarre for this time of year.
Further north, firefighters battled a fire at Belmont North near the Baptist Christian Community School. The wind sending the flames a couple of metres into the air. Luckily, no homes or buildings were under threat. Crews were also kept busy putting out a fire in scrub at Bennett's Green. Fireys used just about any means to extinguish the flames. It's believed this fire was also an act of arson. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
It's finally here, the 2003 Grand Final with Penrith against the Roosters. This game has been described as East meets West, the red-hot favourites meet the underdogs. But whatever way you look at it, it's the minor premiers taking on the second best team in the competition. Now this game has two teams that come from very different regions, each side boasting very different football qualities. The Roosters are from the affluent eastern suburbs, have been renowned in the past as the Cafe Lattes. However, they've been anything but that in the last 2 years. This side has plenty of skill, but they're more recognised these days for their toughness and defensive fitness. But the Penrith Mountain Men, who you would not call tough, are more appreciated for their ball skills and their attacking ability. Now, without getting too analytical about the game, the winner on Sunday will get off to a good start by virtue of the majority of their team not being overawed by grand final hype. Now, I rate the Roosters some chance of winning this game quite easily. They have the potential to win by 12 points or more. I also believe the Roosters' overall chances of defending their title is around about 70%, which leaves Penrith the roughies of completing a fairy tale. However, after 1997, I do believe in fairy tales, and that's why this grand final is going to be a magic one to watch. Look, enjoy the game. It's been a great season of rugby league, and I'll catch you next year.
In 1966, the Leyland brothers crossed Australia from west to east, making a movie along the way. Now Mike is donating one of the old Land Rovers to the museum.
It is. It's the very first vehicle that ever went across the centre of Australia, all the way from the steep point in the west through to Cape Byron in the east. And no one had ever done that with any sort of vehicle, either walking, by camels, by horseback or vehicle. So it was a first in every sense.
The Landy still has the same set of tyres from the 60s.
Well, it means a lot because somebody offered me $8,000 for it, and I said no, I want to put it somewhere where people can see it, because it is part of Australian motoring history. And once it's in the Burwood Auto Museum there, people can go and see it, forever virtually, and they're going to keep it inside a building, and it probably won't get any worse than it is now when it's inside a building.
Mike has also just released a book about his life.
With the focus now off Newcastle, attention moves to Perth as Games officials packed up their Broadmeadow base this morning, preparing for the big move west. But tournament organisers say it will be a tough act to follow, and if Newcastle was to ever again express an interest in hosting the Games, the city would be in with a real chance.
It'll be definitely up there. This has been a very successful event. We're very happy with the way things have gone. Sporting competition has run very smoothly. We've had great support locally.
Most community groups, in fact, would welcome back the 5,000 students and spectators, the week passing without incident.
The behaviour and attitude of the supporters and the athletes of the Games was excellent. There was very, very few problems from a police perspective.
And there were no complaints from the business sector either, with many cafes and pubs enjoying a boost in business over the 5-day period.
We can't complain at all. I think everyone in the street's doing well, but I also believe that Beaumont Street and the whole range of the areas are all doing really well. So, we're really happy with it.
It does inject a good deal of cash into the economy over the week, about 4.5 million, and then there's the long-term flow-on economic benefits from that.
Adam McKilrick, NBN News.
This is a reasonably good section of roadway. Accident investigation, investigating the cause of this accident, but we need motorists to be very careful and slow down.
This is the old outdoor pool built in 1929, temperature a chilly 17 degrees. And this is the new indoor heated pool open to the public today, coming in at a balmy 25 degrees. And it's all been made possible largely due to a massive donation.
The whole facility has cost $3.1 million. Most of that has been contributed by Mount Arthur Coal. They've made a contribution of $2.5 million to that project.
The pool was opened with all the usual fanfare and speeches, but the moment that everybody was looking forward to came soon enough. The recent few days of wet weather in the Upper Hunter has pushed the workmen to the limit, with the finishing touches yet to be put on.
It was a desperate time to beat the weather, but we just about made it. We've got a few little things still to finish off, but we're very pleased with the progress we made over the last few days to get the whole project completed to what it is now.
All eyes were glued firmly on the heavens above with 5 hours of non-stop entertainment. The ageing World War II warbirds proved age is no barrier, taking part in a mock dogfight. But it was an awesome display of aerobatics that took the crowd's breath away. For the organisers, getting 200 aircraft in the one place at the same time is a mean feat in itself.
It takes a lot of coordinating, and we have 50 members of the Skate and Aero Club who've dedicated probably most of their spare time in the last 6 months to getting all this show put together.
But their hard work has paid off, with the foreboding sky doing nothing to deter the large crowd.
We have a large number of people coming in from all over Australia just to come and see this show. So it really is truly a national event. In fact, I know of people who've come here from Los Angeles and from New Zealand to be here today.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
What does it take to make a good husband? According to Grant Jenkins, plenty of love, sacrifice and a lot of hard work.
You know, it's been hard, and I think a lot of people would relate to that there is a lot of hardship. It's not always plain sailing.
Really loving, he's romantic, he's sexy, he's a great father.
Grant was nominated by his partner Trish and later chosen by Family Circle magazine as New South Wales's Husband of the Year. Between them, they have 5 children.
And we've got the big blended family. And sometimes it feels like we're in a blender too, but it's, we try.
While music was his first love, now family comes first.
I'm a musician by trade. That's my love, my passion. And basically I had to give that away because we started this big life together.
After a failed business venture, Grant was forced to return to work as a bricklayer to pay the bills, which left no time for his music. But it's that sacrifice which caught the attention of judges. Grant says he's like a lot of other Australian blokes who try their best to earn a living and still make time for family and relationships.
If you love someone with all your heart, then no sacrifice is too great to make that relationship work.
The F3 freeway was busy in both directions this evening as the Labor Day long weekend draws to a close. Rain and wet roads prompting police to warn drivers to exercise caution.
To drive to the conditions, particularly if it's going to be raining and wet weather, and to use the driver reviver stations. They're there for your assistance.
The Hunter had the state's first road fatality of the weekend. A 63-year-old, whose name is yet to be released, died in this head-on collision on Tokal Road, Bulwarra Heights. An 18-year-old blacksmith's man driving the four-wheel drive remains in a serious condition in Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital. It's been the only low point so far on the roads for police.
All our statistics are down, with the exception of drink driving, which is slightly up by some 5 drivers over the same period last year.
While the long weekend police operation slowdown concludes later tonight, Northern New South Wales officers will continue to closely monitor Pacific and New England highway traffic until next weekend. Gary Blair, NBN News.
This is just what the Australian Hotels Association doesn't want, people being able to buy a beer at their local surf club. But the battle for clubs like Dixon Park to gain their independence is coming at a price.
We're $12,000 to $15,000 this episode has cost the club, mainly brought about by the need to engage senior counsel and barristers to combat the fight from the hotels.
Dixon Park's application was rejected by the licensing court after AHA lawyers discovered a section of the Liquor Act that prevents a special licence being granted to an unregistered club. That section of the law may now make the Redhead Club's licence illegal, costing the club $40,000 a year that would otherwise be spent on life-saving operations.
If it was taken away, it would mean that we'd go back to the old arcade dinosaur age and we'd have to have chook raffles again to raise money.
Hopefully sensibility will reign very soon and the government will step in and either give us a special provision, which they have granted for universities, for surf lifesavers, or write a new rule for surf lifesaving associations.
No one from the hotel's lobby group would appear on camera today, but it says it has community interests at heart. Others believe it's protecting its own patch. Paul Lobb, NBN News. The 18-degree water was warmer than the air temperature for the start of the Morpeth Triathlon. Hundreds of people were up early to put themselves through the gruelling event.
They've got a 1 kilometre swim, which will basically go up and back, turn at the bridge, come back. Then they'll head out on a 30-kilometre bike ride. And after the 30-kilometre bike ride, they'll be heading out on an 8-kilometre run. Terrigal's
Steve Hackett was first to finish the swim and get on his bike, but Moorlambar's Paul Matthews quickly shot to the lead with superior pace, covering the scenic country roads with ease. It's all about a quick change from the bike shoes to the runners, and Matthews continued his lead into the final leg.
There's just a lot of people out there who are into their health and fitness, and they really like to push themselves to the limit. And I suppose swimming, running and riding all together in a long endurance race is something that really challenges people. So yeah, I think they're people who are sort of goal driven and perhaps a little bit mad too.
The race took its toll on some, but Matthews was still there at the finish, stopping the clock at 1 hour 25 minutes.
The last 10K on the bike is really hard going up the hills out there, so it's really tough, especially with the wind as well.
Nick Hornman finished second, with Gosford's Leon Griffin third. The first woman home was Sydney-based Kiwi Heather Evans, whose next stop is the Triathlon Worlds in December.
Bit of a loyal Kiwi, but I moved here three years ago just for the training and racing, but I still race for New Zealand.
There was a steady breeze at the start line today as 160 boats raced in 8 different categories. But as the southerly wind built in strength, it was the multi-hulls that proved to be the biggest handful for the young sailors. Flying a hull on a catamaran is a skillful pursuit, but when the wind gets too strong, there's a fine line between a cracking run and a big spill, and all that's left to do is bail out. Some of the smaller boats got into trouble as well, but all in all it was a successful regatta, once again making Lake Macquarie a spectacle of sail.
Consulting sessions took on another meaning today for the 350 delegates in Newcastle attending the Global Network Forum. Supported by the World Health Organisation, they meet each year to share ideas on how countries are trying to improve the health of communities. Today's discussion included Indigenous affairs and representing Australia, Dr Sandra Eads, one of the first Aboriginal medical graduates from the University of Newcastle.
It blew them away. They'd walk in and they'd say, "Oh, are you the doctor?" Because it just wasn't their expectation that Aboriginal people were doctors, and that was early on, and fortunately that's changing.
While Newcastle Uni has led the way in providing access to education and medical training for Indigenous students, Dr Eads believes real change to serious health issues will take time.
I think it's a transition over decades that will result in ultimately in the improvements to the health of Aboriginal people.
And understanding the challenges faced by doctors working in Indigenous communities is shared worldwide.
Trying to get more doctors in Aboriginal communities that are actually being faced in the US, in Canada, in South America, and indeed in all 35 countries that are represented here today.
This is the grim scene that confronted emergency services on the Pacific Highway near Kupanook. Police believe a northbound Mitsubishi Magna carrying a couple from west of Port Macquarie crossed into the path of oncoming traffic and collided with a Ford Falcon. As a result of the impact, a 59-year-old woman in the Mitsubishi was thrown from the car and killed. Her 66-year-old husband died when the vehicle burst into flames and he was incinerated. A 64-year-old Morisset man travelling in the southbound car was dead by the time medical help reached the scene. A 66-year-old Cessnock man driving the Ford was seriously injured and rushed to Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital. Luckily, the occupants of a station wagon that got caught up in the crash escaped with only minor injuries. The Taree coroner was rushed to the scene to be briefed on the accident by police. He's now awaiting a report from investigators on the cause of the triple fatality. Gary Blair, NBN News.
This afternoon's Horizon flight between Williamtown and Sydney was full, with the airline trading normally while the administrator looks at the books.
We've been in contact with the administrators. We're certainly optimistic that they'll be able to trade their way through it. We'll be talking to them progressively over the next 21 days with the hope that they'll be able to stay in this market.
Horizon has been operating 2 to 3 flights a day between Sydney and Newcastle since last December, as well as services between Sydney and Cooma, Grafton, Taree and Kempsey. It's a tough time for some of the smaller airlines.
Generally speaking, on the Sydney service we have seen some drop off, but that is largely a result of the volume of discount fares that are available through Sydney Airport on Virgin and Qantas. And of course we're seeing Virgin Blue start here in a couple of weeks' time, so bringing those competitive fares back into Newcastle Airport is a very important part of our strategy.
The company says it's looking at ways to improve the business and trade out of trouble. Paul Lobb, NBN News. Once moored at King's Wharf at the eastern end of the harbour and more recently at Lee Wharf, the tugs are on the move again, this time to brand new floating berths at Dyke Point on the old State Dockyard site. 2 floating pontoons catering for 4 tugs are complete, with a third larger one under construction that will allow repairs and maintenance to be carried out. The tugs handle more than 2,500 shipping movements each year. Meantime, the Old Nobby's signal station is likely to house a cafe restaurant. The Newcastle Port Corporation is about to unveil a short list of preferred future tenants for the old signal tower and buildings after calling for expressions of interest recently. And the port will spend $1.7 million replacing one of its 2 pilot cutters, with the successful tenderer to be announced soon. Paul Lobb, NBN News.